Welcome to Gurukul's CAT 100 series, a series that's designed specifically to take you from your study room to the corporate boardroom. I am Prady Sharma, and this is Verbal Mastery with Prady.
Hello guys, welcome to another video. Now, this is your passage for today. In case you want to take this up as a test, all you've got to do is go on to www.thegurukul.org.in and register for the 100 days to CAT test series. Now, this is a free test series where we'd be giving one test of quant, LRDI and verbal ability every single day for the next 100 days till your CAT. Now, this is just to make sure that you stay consistent with your CAT 2025 prep and crack CAT 2025 this year. Let's get into the video. This is your first part of the passage. Read the passage, pause the video here, jot down all the main points, and then we're going to go into the next part. This is your second part of the passage. Pause the video here, read this passage, jot down all the main points, and then we'll go for the third part. This is your third part of the passage. Pause the video here, read all the main points, and then we'll go into the next part. This is your last part of the passage. Pause the video here, read this passage, jot down the main points, and then we're going to go into the questions. So this is your first question of this passage. Pause the video here, read and answer this question, and then we're going to go into the second question. This is the second question of this passage. Pause the video here, read and answer this question, and then we're going to move into the third question. This is your third question of the passage. Pause the video here, read and answer this question, and then we're going to move into the fourth and the last question. This is the fourth and the last question of this passage. Pause the video over here, read and answer this question, and then we're going to move into the passage explanations and the question explanations. What is this passage talking about? According to the psychologists, in addition to a physiological immune system, we also have a behavioral one. So physiological immune system means the one that's protecting us against the diseases and all. Okay, so we also have a behavioral immune system, apparently, is what he's saying. An unconscious code of conduct that helps us stay disease-free, including a fear and avoidance of the unfamiliar, and so possibly the people. Okay, so what is this? We try to avoid people whom we don't know just because of the risk of catching an infection. That's the kind of behavioral, immune system that he is talking about, that the author is talking about. When infection risk is high, this parasite stress behavior increases, potentially manifesting as attitudes and even voting patterns that champion conformity and reject foreign out groups. Okay, so basically what is he trying to say? He's trying to say that when the infection risk or risk of an infection in a particular community is high, then people usually tend to choose those people who they are familiar with. Okay, choose the value systems that they're familiar with. They do not like to go outside the group. Okay, and that in a way is giving rise to authoritarian politics. Okay, authoritarian politics is almost like dictatorial politics, right? So a new study, the largest yet to investigate links between pathogen prevalence and ideology, reveals a strong connection between infection rates and strains of authoritarianism in public attitudes, political leadership, and lawmaking. Now, what does this mean? They conducted a new study. Okay, they did some research, and it is telling us the relation between, and it has given us the relation between pathogen prevalence, that means how much of an infection is there in the particular community, and strains of authoritarianism in public attitudes, that means how authoritarian people are becoming or how leaning people are towards authoritarianism. And this shows a strong connection. So there is a strong connection between pathogen prevalence and a strain of authoritarianism in public attitude is what this whole passage is talking to us about. Let's go further. While data used for study predates COVID-19, University of Cambridge psychologists say that a greater public desire for conformity and obedience as a result of the pandemic could ultimately see liberal politics suffer at the ballot. What does this mean? They're saying that although, the data that they've collected is before a COVID-19 pandemic, what people are saying is that when there is a greater desire, okay, when people need more or people are more prone to having conformity and obedience, then liberal politics will usually lose out. Okay, researchers used infectious disease data from the United States of America in 1990s and 2000s as a response to psychological survey taken by over 206,000 people in the US during 2017 and 2018. So they compared these two data. Okay, the infectious disease data from this time period and the data of a psychological survey taken between 2017 and 2018. They found that the more infectious US cities and states went on to have more authoritarian leaning citizens. So again, what we've seen in the first part of the paragraph, that is being spoken about in the second part of the paragraph also in the terms of a study. Okay, so what did they find out? They found out that where there was more, diseases and infections, yes, those cities had more authoritarian leaning citizens, people who preferred authoritarianism more. The US findings were replicated at an international level, so they didn't stop at a national level, they went international. Okay, they took a survey from over 51,000 people and 47 different countries, and they compared those responses with the national disease rate. Again, they did the same thing. They're comparing disease rate with what kind of a political attitude you have. The most authoritarian US states had rates of infectious diseases from HIV to measles around 4 times higher than the least authoritarian states. While for the most authoritarian nations, it was 3 times higher than the least. So clearly it's established that let's say that there's a city A, okay, which has disease rate X, and then there's a city B, which has disease rate of 10X. Okay, then the political leaning towards authoritarianism, if in the city A is Y, then this is approximately 4Y. So that way, this was more. Okay, same with the nations also. Let's take nation 1 and nation 2. If nation 1 had X and 10X, okay, this was Y and 3Y. So obviously, very clearly we could see that the cities or the nations which had a greater prevalence rate. So obviously, wherever the disease rate was greater, over there we can also see that the authoritarianism was greater, or the public leaning towards authoritarianism was greater. Right. So this was after the scientists account for a range of other socio-economic factors that influence ideology, including religious belief and inequalities in wealth and education. So they took into consideration all this as well. Okay. After taking all this into consideration, they still could separate the infectious disease component, and then they could check it with respect to the religious underpinnings. They also found that higher regional infection rates in USA corresponded to more votes for Donald Trump in the 2016 US presidential election. Moreover, in both nations and US states, higher rates of infectious diseases correlated with more vertical laws. Okay, what are these vertical laws? Laws that affect one section of the people. Horizontal laws are laws that affect everyone equally. Okay, such as the abortion control and extreme penalties for certain crimes. Okay, so we find a consistent relationship between the prevalence of infectious diseases and psychological preference for conformity in hierarchical power structures, pillars of authoritarian politics. So what are these pillars of authoritarian politics? Nothing but hierarchical power structures and conformity. So this is very, very important for us. There's a very strong relationship, or very consistent and strong relationship, between the prevalence of infectious diseases and these kind of things, these structures, okay, hierarchical and conformity structures, which are nothing but something that's very relevant to the authoritarian politics. Okay, who said this? Some experts said this. So higher rates of infectious diseases predicted political attitudes and outcomes such as conservative voting and authoritarian legal structures. Across multiple geographical and historical levels of analysis, we see this relationship emerge again and again. So this is not a one-time thing. This is something that is consistent. This is something that's very highly correlated, strongly correlated, if I have to use the same words as what's being told in the passage. So it's very clear that yes, wherever there's high infectious diseases, people are more leaning towards conformity, people are more leaning towards hierarchical power structures. In turn, people are more leaning towards authoritarian politics. Okay, we found that pathogen rate from over 20 years ago was still relevant to political attitudes as recently as 2016. If COVID-19 increases the allure of authoritarian politics, what is this allure? Allure means very charm. Okay, you can just simply think of it as charm. All right. So increases the charm of authoritarian politics, the effects could be long lasting, said Zimizor, whoever, some guy. All right. The study also tested whether the link to authoritarianism held for zoonotic diseases, those only acquired from animals. So zoonotic diseases are nothing but the ones that you can get from animals, but found that it related solely to human disease transmission, further suggesting that this is a part of behavioral immune system. So basically, from here I get two very, very important ideas. First thing, that yes, if I am taking a data of some time long ago, okay, and even because of that time, okay, I'm able to say that right now my elections got impacted in 2016. That means for years to come, okay, if people think about the charm that this authoritarian politics has, or they think that, authoritarian politics could somehow stop the infectious diseases, then definitely in the years to come, liberal, governments or liberal political parties might suffer. I'm not talking all liberal political parties will suffer, but they might suffer. It's not a definite thing, okay? But there's a strong correlation. Second thing that I see, this infectious diseases concept that people are, keeping in their mind and they're leaning towards to the, authoritarian politics is more and is only to do with, I could say only to do with, because of this line, it's solely to do with human to human disease transmission and not to do with zoonotic diseases. That means animal to human disease transmission. So these are two good ideas that I get from this passage. Now that we've read the passage, let's quickly go into the questions. Which of the following best describes the central argument present in the passage? So what's the main idea of the passage? The COVID-19 pandemic is predicted to cause a global surge in authoritarian political systems and voting behaviors. Now again, see, this is one of the ideas that I get from the passage, but this is not the main idea that I get from the passage, right? So I can just take it off. It's a partial scope choice for me. Psychological preferences for conformity and hierarchy. Wow, so far it started out good. The foundations of authoritarianism, great, are primarily driven by religious beliefs and socio-economic equalities. Yahan pe gadbad ho gaya. This is where it's gone wrong. See, nowhere in the passage has he told that they're driven by socio-economic inequalities and religious beliefs, right? So I can take this off. This will be a inconsistent answer for me. A novel study, a new study. So the word novel means new. Okay. So a new study indicates a consistent and long-lasting causal link. A novel study indicates a consistent and long-lasting causal link, yes, between the prevalence of human-to-human infectious diseases and societal shift towards authoritarian attitudes and politics. Yes, this is what he's repeatedly told, right? Between human-to-human, what infectious diseases we are getting, that infectious diseases ka prevalence is directly linked to the social, attitudes that people have towards authoritarianism. So this is a very wide good answer for us. Now D, the behavioral immune system is an unconscious mechanism, great, that leads to a general fear of the unfamiliar, very good, exemplified by patterns that reject foreign outgroups. Now this is again very, very partial choice for me to take, so I'm going to remove this. The best possible answer for me is going to become C. Let's move to the second question. Based on the study's finding regarding vertical and horizontal laws, it can be inferred that infectious disease prevalence primarily influences legal frameworks that, okay, so what kind of, legal frameworks does, the kind of horizontal and vertical laws really influence as stated in the passage? So aim to reduce overall crime rates across all segments of the society. Now when I say across all segments, this is a horizontal shift. Okay, now what do I know from the passage? I know that vertical gets done, whereas horizontal is not done. Right, so definitely this will not be done. Reflect a heightened concern for the well-being and equality of all citizens. Again, equality of all citizens, definitely horizontal, so it will not be done. Tend to impose different rules or penalties based on group identity or specific behaviors. So this is different things for different people. That means this is going to be a vertical thing, so this could be my perfect answer. Are designed to universally protect public health and safety such as sanitation and regulations. Now again, universally protect, which means this is horizontal, so this will not be my answer. So the best possible answer should be C. Now third question, which of the following, if true, would most strengthen the study's conclusion that the link between infectious diseases and authoritarianism is rooted in a behavioral immune system related to human transmission. So what's he saying? One of these, if one of these is true, it will help us understand, or it will help us, strengthen what the study has told us about human-to-human disease transmission being related to the potential political outcomes. Okay, so A, separate study finds that societies with high rates of non-communicable diseases also exhibited interest. Now, if they are showing that non-communicable diseases are also exhibiting or also showing increased authoritarian tendencies, that means this is not about behavioral immune system. This could be about any disease, right? So this should not be my answer. Research shows that fear of contagious diseases triggers specific brain regions associated with social conservatism and outgroup avoidance. So again, here what's he saying? Okay, so if you have a fear of certain contagious diseases, then you will be conservative and you will reject the outgroups. Okay, then this is a case of behavioral immunity, right? So this could be my answer. See, historical records indicate that periods of severe drought and famine frequently precede the rise of authoritarian regimes. Again, this has nothing to do with behavior, no? So this will not be my answer. Okay, see, I need an answer that has to do with behavior, not any other cause. Surveys in various countries reveal that populations with greater exposure to diverse cultures tend to have lower levels of perceived infectious disease risk. Okay, great. They do not have, even if I assume this is true. Okay. It's not about whether you are at risk for infectious diseases or not. It is when you are at risk for infectious diseases, what happens, right? Do you lean towards authoritarianism or not? So this definitely is not my answer because this is irrelevant to me. The best possible answer now becomes B. Let's move to the last question of this passage, guys. The author's remarks regarding the long-lasting effects of COVID-19 primarily suggest that. So what are we going to understand, or what do we understand when the author said about the long-lasting effects of COVID-19? A, pandemic will even inevitably lead to the collapse of liberal democracies globally. I have two big problems with this answer. First is inevitably. Second one is globally. Both of which make this a very extreme choice, and we cannot take such extreme choice because this is more to do with a strong causation. It does not say that, yes, this will definitely happen. Nowhere in the passage does he say that it will definitely happen. So B, changes in public preference for conformity due to high pathogen rates are highly resistant to short-term political shifts. Yes, we understand that this COVID-19 thing could have a long-lasting impact. That means short-term political shifts, it can completely resist, right? So this could be the answer. Future voting patterns will consistently favor leaders who prioritize public health over economic stability. See, maybe this is true, maybe this is not true, but in the passage is not mentioned that to us, so I cannot take this up. The direct health impacts of the pandemic are less significant than its long-term psychological and political consequences. Now, this could be an inference that we draw further out of the passage. If there's more information that's been given to us, maybe we could draw this inference, but as of now, this inference will be out of scope for us. So I'm just going to write this out of scope. We can take this answer off. The best possible answer now will be B. Now that you've finished all the 4 questions, tell us in the comments how many questions you've gotten correct. If you've stayed till here, then please drop a like because that motivates us to keep coming up with new videos like this. Share this video with your friends and help them prepare for CAT prep. Let's all ace CAT 2025 together. I'll see you in the next one.
You enjoyed learning from today's session.
This series is designed to help you with your CAT preparation and practice daily. We are with you in this journey.
To watch the next video, click here. And to watch Gurukul's CAT 100 series, study room to boardroom, the entire playlist, click here.
If you learned from today's session, like, share, and subscribe.